Welcome to Inside the Banjoverse, the podcast that delves deep inside the world of traditional Irish music and the people who make it. In this episode, I am thrilled to have the legendary Cathy Jordan, lead singer with the band Dervish, as my guest. Cathy's captivating voice and magnetic stage presence has made her a beloved figure of the Irish music scene worldwide. Over many years, she has toured the world with the band Dervish, sharing her songs and her rich musical heritage. In this episode, you'll get a chance to hear from Cathy about her musical journey, what it's like to be part of one of Ireland's most celebrated bands, and the inspirations behind her music and song. So sit back, relax, and step inside the Banjoverse with the great Cathy Jordan.
When I was a fair maid about 17, I listed in the Navy for to serve the Queen. I listed in the Navy, a sailor had to stand for to hear the cannons rattle and the music so grand, the music so grand, the music so grand, for to hear the cannons rattle, the music so grand. The officer.
So you've been with Dervish for 30 years.
30 years.
You must have joined
over
when
30 years.
You must have only been 4 or 5, Cathy.
6 3/4. I was a very early starter and bloomer. Yeah, it's hard to believe. You know, I would never have thought that all those years ago I'd still be traveling the world with the same band and the same people, more or less the same people. The time has flown. They got together in 1989 and I joined in 1991. So, yeah. So I'm the newbie.
Still.
They were, still the new. Well, Tom Morrow is actually, he's the newbie. He's been there 27 years now.
So take me right back. You're from Roscommon. Was it a musical upbringing? Are there other musicians in the house, in your forefathers, as they say?
Well, it wasn't so much. It was musical in so far as everybody sang, and singing was a big thing in our house, and learning songs, and that's a lovely song. And I used to go to neighbours' houses and learn songs from them. And my father had a repertoire, and mother, and I was apparently singing before I was talking, and there's a recording of me at the age of 3 singing the Bodhrán Men, and at the same time I did, I think, a bunch of violets and all brothers and sisters. There was, parties. Every social gathering was marked with a sing song. So I was very determined to get as many slots in the the party pieces as possible. So I had more songs I think learned off than most of them, and it's just something I love to do. And wherever there was music, that's where I gravitated. For everybody else, I think in the house it was a pastime and something you did recreationally, but for me it was just all I wanted to do. My brother had a beat up old Yamaha guitar. The strings were about an inch from the fretboard, but I learned to play it and joined the folk choir in Scramog. And, from there, weddings, funerals, whatever, little gatherings. And then at school, I was in musicals and choirs and just wherever there was music, and it didn't matter what kind, although the songs I would have grown up with all folk and traditional songs. But where my head went musically, it didn't really matter. And I didn't have any. The only formal musical training I had, I was brought to Tulsk or Rakrahan every Tuesday evening, and I had banjo lessons. So I was a banjo player for a while. But it was all too heavy for me. It was just a cumbersome, heavy lump.
I thought you were going to say emotionally heavy, the banjo.
That too. That too. So yeah, I love playing the guitar, but when I joined Dervish, then you know, my guitar playing wouldn't have been up to speed with reels and jigs, so I kind of gave it a sabbatical. And then I found a bouzouki that was in a guitar shape, so that brought me back to the strings. And now I have a small ukulele thing that's like a mini guitar. So I got back eventually, but I didn't, as I said, I didn't get any formal training in the guitar. And by the time somebody said, what chord is that you're playing? "Ooh, I don't know, it's just, it makes a sound that I like." And I was shown a few things from a neighbour who came home from London. Colin Casey is his name, and he had a huge record collection, and he was a great guitar player and singer. So he kind of blew my mind musically in terms of, you know, the music that he had from, you know, Leonard Cohen to Tom Waits to John Prine to Emmylou Harris, Loudon Wainwright, McGarry Sisters, all of that American and Canadian folk stuff that I really loved. And then that got parked when I joined Dervish. They weren't looking for that kind of music, so I had to. It was the first time I had to really think about genres, because I didn't really think about genres that much. It's all music to me. So, yeah. So, and traditional music. Oh, that's not traditional, and that is, and that, you know, the rules came in, you know, were applied, and I didn't have any before that. So then I went into digging in archives for material that would be traditional, while all the other stuff was still.
So what were the rules for traditional?
Well, the songs that were from Ireland, songs that were old, songs that were, you know, that weren't new folk songs from Canada or from John Prine. So we went back. I suppose we were emulating what Planksty and the Bothy Band did, you know, in the 60s and 70s. And that's what we wanted to do. So we imposed certain rules on ourselves at the time that we've broken several times along the way. But at the time, and we said the songs from Harmony Hill were all, you know, old songs that we collected either from old recordings or the archives in Dublin, or old just collections that, you know, songs I would have heard from neighbours, all of that, you know. So it was all Irish.
What age were you when you joined? When you joined
How are you
Dervish?
doing the math? Doing the math? I told you I was 6 3/4.
So no, I'm curious from the point of view of, you know, being the only female in a band and being on the road and touring. Like, you know, there's like Dolores Keane talks about, you know, how her parents were really nervous about her heading off on tour with the Dannon because she was only a young girl.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about what that was like for you at that. You don't have to name the age. You can just talk about what it was like.
No, I was young. I was very young. But I was already moved out of home. And I think my father thought the whole music, I think both parents thought the whole music thing was a cod, you know, in terms of, even though they love music and, you know, they love being around it, and no get together was complete without it, music. They never really deemed it as something that I could make a career out of, or that anyone could make a career out of. You know, my father said, when are you going to quit the bollocks? And if you're allowed to course on this program, you can bleep that out. You know, it was, when are you going to get a real job? And when are you going to, you're never going to make anything of yourself doing this. You might be good at it, but you're wasting your time. You'll never make a career out of it. And it wasn't until we were on the Late Late Show, which, you know, everyone in Ireland in the 90s was glued to the Late Late Show. And Gay Byrne was the host at the time. And for his daughter to be on the Late Late Show was, you couldn't beat that at all. So he kind of pulled in his horns that way. But he wasn't the sort that would give you any praise much anyway. He was a typical Irish daddy that, you'd get the telling off if something was wrong, but you wouldn't get praised for doing anything right. So, and after he died, though, I found all the clippings and cuttings that he had made from various things. So it's stuffed under the mattress, So that was a very poignant moment. But I mean, it was him gave me the music to it, but yet he thought it was a waste of my time. So that was the irony of it all.
Was there, you see, I know nothing about singing, right? And I mean, I was, in a band for an awful lot of years. I didn't even know what half the songs were about that we were singing. I never listened to lyrics.
Right. Well, somewhere like that, yeah.
Yeah. I went to see Donovan the other night and I realized that, like, I know all the songs, but I'd never really heard the lyrics before, and I'd listened to them thousands of times. So I'm like that. So I don't really understand the heritage behind songs. And so can you talk a little bit about how important that was? Is there a Roscommon context to it? Is it localized the way the tunes sometimes are, or how did that all work out?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't. I didn't have any kind of local. Apart from Percy French, I didn't know an awful lot of local songs. I would have grown up with them, but a lot of the songs my mother and father sang were from all over the country, and everything from rebel songs to comic songs, and and Percy French songs and all of that. So they weren't localized, as I said. I mean, it's only now in the last 4 years, maybe, I'm zooming in because of this cranky project that I'm doing. I'm finding a song from every county, and some counties have huge amounts of songs, and other counties have very few that's known. You have to go digging. For instance, Galway would have many, many songs. Cork, Kerry, Fermanagh, Tyrone, Derry has lots. Wexford, because of all the history and all the battles and whatever that took place there. Cork has loads. Roscommon have a good few, the Bono one, the big story of the unrequited love song between McDermott and his betrothed, and he wasn't good enough, so he was banished by the father, and she died of a broken heart, and then he died of a broken heart, and the two trees grew over their heads and fell down to create what's known as the Schneim Gra, or the Lover's Knot, and that appears in so many songs like Barbara Allen that it's travelled the world. And the journey of songs is really, really fascinating, when they take on so many migrating, I suppose, between the Spalpeens and all the workers that went from Scotland and England back and forth. They brought songs with them, and those songs adapted and got altered by the places that we're in. The place names might have been changed, the air might have been changed, the people might have been changed, but the story, the essence of the story stayed the same. And you would have songs like the Irish song called The Tricoloured House, which is a child ballad, and Francis Child collected 305 macabre and wonderful songs, and all of them have versions, and that's child ballad number 2, and there's gazillions of versions all over the world. They turn up everywhere, but our one is called The Tricoloured House. The one you might be more familiar with is Scarborough Fair, the Simon and Garfunkel made famous, and they got it from the singing of Martin Carty. And Martin Carty knows about 200 versions of it, and and on it goes, and they keep discovering all these all these songs. And that song, Oh No On, that I was talking about, that essence of the story is in another child ballad called Barbara Allen. So that unrequited love and those stories. And they have, like, I just love them because they're like little snapshots of our history and our, you know, they're like little anthologies in themselves, and they're telling us what people wore, how they thought, the politics of the area, what people believed in, what they didn't believe in. Women didn't fare too well, the religion, all sorts of much more than the tunes in a way carry. I mean, the tunes are beautiful and they evoke so much, but they're not telling these little stories that make up our history, and a huge part to play in how we view ourselves down through the years. And whether you agree or you disagree with the sentiment, they are the historical documents that are like windows into all the struggles and so forth of our people gone by.
Some new songs must have new themes then, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are still songs, great songs been written that will in time hopefully fall into the tradition and be carried on as folk songs or traditional songs of the future. I mean, to have a song written in the first place, there's a good story and there's something to be told. There's a story to be told. So those stories are still being told, and hopefully lots of more will be written in the particular genre that sounds like they've been around. You know yourself in tunes, the nicest compliment to a tune you wrote is to hear played in a session, and for people to think it's been around for generations. I do love that about writing songs or tunes, that I write them hoping that they'll fall into the river that heads on and gets excavated and gets looked at in generations to come.
So have you written lots of songs?
Not lots, but I've written quite a few, maybe 25 or something like that.
That's lots.
That's lots. I mean, some of them haven't seen the full light of day yet, but it's something I'm always working on, and I'd be very particular about them, and I scrap some of them and then come back to them and have a look at them again, what was good about them. And they take time, and they take a lot of weeding, to get that. I don't need that. What is it about? Is the story been told? But like, for instance, during lockdown, I wrote a song about a subject that there didn't seem to be any songs about, which was the wrens of the Curragh. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the wrens of the Curragh. So these were women from mostly Dublin, the Pale kind of area. They were disenfranchised after the famine. They were poor. It was death by starvation or go to the workhouse, which was another way to die. So they took to the roads and followed the soldiers down to the Curragh, which is one of our richest racing land now, where all the rich race horses live and are bred and livestock and all of that. But these women, they knew they'd get fed or they'd get the scraps, and some were in prostitution. They knew that being beside the soldiers of the Curragh that they wouldn't die, but they were treated very badly. They lived in the ditches, and they dug out nests for themselves that were only big enough for their bodies, and that's where they lived. And then if they got pregnant and had children lived in those nests as well. And they were ostracized by the church, and people used to drive out from Dublin and strip them and beat them and spit on them, and yeah, it's a shady underbelly of the history of the Curragh, and you know.
What year is that?
Just after the famine, so 1850s. So yeah, and they deserved, as I said, you know, a lot of the traditional songs, women don't fare very well, and there's lots of ballads where there isn't a lot of respect, or the women aren't the victors. You know, the men seem to be always the victors, and you could count on one hand with fingers missing where the women have to say and you know that they win their particular battle. So there's a very few of them. So when I can, I like to, you know, address that imbalance.
So do you think most songwriters were men? I mean, I'm going back over we'll say, hundreds of years when a lot of old songs came from.
Well, probably. I mean, given it's not absolute, but probably because they had more time. And I mean, if I know myself that in certain areas, you know, when marriages were made, the women had to, you know, give up any notions of playing instruments or dancing, or they were just slaves to the house they married into, and they worked and worked and worked. My own mother worked and worked and worked and worked, and there was no time until much later. There was very little time for recreation because there was big families, and you had to till the fields and feed the cattle, and you know, it was work. So socializing was rare, and you know, to have the time and the money and the resources to be writing songs, that was where you had to be an elite of some sort to have that time. You know, you had to have more money than most, and men would have had probably more time and more money. So I would say, yeah. Not to say there weren't some written by women, but not as many, I'd say.
Yeah. Do you feel kind of called as an activist in any fashion, you know, kind of being the singer in a band and having, you know, international renown and national renown? Is that something that comes along naturally, and are you comfortable with it or passionate about it?
I am, but I would like the songs to do their own telling. I mean, as I said, they are historical documents, and I think without browbeating or anything like that, there's messages in there that that the window is there for people to see through and make up their own minds on certain things without having to, you know, put your own opinions on it. So, if you know what I mean, you don't have to be, you know, at the O'Leary with a placard or whatever. I think by singing some of these songs and by playing some of the music and by sharing these little vignettes and, you know, offering people a crack to look through, they can make up their own minds. I think sometimes, you know, when you browbeat somebody, the effect you want is what happens. You know, and the people you want to maybe convert, you know, aren't persuaded they're persuaded more by persuasion than browbeaten, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like being coaxed rather than
I have a 13-year-old son. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yes, of course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Achieve nothing
Make
by
make
browbeat.
make is it her or him
It's a him.
son? Okay, yeah. Make him think it was his idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take me back to the early days with Dervish. I mean, it must have been incredibly exciting. Like, you're a national standard now. You're one of the absolute, I don't want to say legacy as in old, but like you're one of the huge bands that are thought of in terms of the Chieftains, Alton,
Well,
Dervish, Chart and
we
Shannon,
just stuck it out. We just stuck it out.
But it's not that
You know,
easy to stick it out unless you have a modicum of success. But what was it like at the start?
It was great. I mean, sure, God, everything was new, and you know, the adventures and the tours and the different countries. And I mean, in a way, we took it far more for granted then than we do now. Because then you think, oh, this is going to be life now, drinking, you know, Chianti and, you know, overlooking some plaza in Spain or Italy or France, and, you know, been brought to the, you know, churches and vaults and playing at the Wall of China and playing, you know, Athens, you know, just amazing experiences that you totally took for granted that, you know, didn't. It was a time where there was work, and then there wasn't as much work. And it's kind of the same now for bands starting off, because everyone starts and they nearly play for nothing. And then you realize you can't be playing for nothing anymore. We're not actually making any money here, so we have to up the fee. But then the new bands get those gigs because they're playing for nothing, and you're demanding more fee, and it doesn't always, you know. So like there was ups and downs on it all, and you have to kind of you have to learn to say no to, even though that's, I'd love to go there, but you know, you want to come home with no money, so you can't be doing that because people have families to rear now, and we have to be more serious about what we do. But it was actually a good thing in many ways, because I think doing too much work as a band burns you out, and if you're away too much from family and friends and normal life, I think burnout is inevitable. So the fact that we put a limit to the amount of time we're away at any one time, which was like no more than 3 weekends, like, so 3 weeks, and I think that, you know, if anyone was to ask, what's the secret, you know, apart from being, you know, too lazy to break up, I think that's one of the main ones, because, you know, you never got to, like, because it's like been with a family for too long. At Christmas, you know, you drive each other mad after a while, so you can't allow that to happen. So you have to, you know, no matter how good the work might be, just learn to say no, because it's in the long run not going to be good for your own system and your own head and everyone else's.
Yeah, you must have had some amazing experiences. I mean, I had forgotten about the Great Wall of China. How did that come about?
Well, we went to China, and we were it was an expat kind of a thing. So we were playing for Irish people, Irish and English people that were out in China, and so we played in Hong Kong and did a load of different venues out there for the expats, and we went to Kuala Lumpur as well on the same trip. And if I remember rightly, I crashed out with a motorbike and came home in a wheelchair. But before I came home, we all went, and a busload of expats and ourselves all went out to the Great Wall, and we played tunes on it. It was just amazing, like an extraordinary experience, and I never take for granted anymore, like where the music that, you know, your father or your mother was singing or playing or loved was taking you to all these exotic places, you know, and they would never have believed, you know, that you'd be there, or the Rock in Rio festival, you know, that was just extraordinary. Just, you know yourself where it brings you, like, and you just pinch yourself going, wow, this beats the hell out of, you know, packing shelves in a shop, working in a council, or having an office job. I mean, there's boring bits, you know, there's a lot of no time, you know, like you're just traveling from A to B, and you have to amuse yourself for 7-8 hours a day sometimes, go from one, because there's a lot of mundaneness about it. But then you get to the good stuff, and, you know, the wonderful festivals, whether it's Edmonton Folk Festival, or whether it's Lorient Festival, Cambridge, or Glastonbury, or, you know, and that's when, you know, there's a word, mundanity, where that disappears, and it's like, oh, now I remember why I do it.
Yeah.
But for your hour and a half of glory, you know, on a gig at night, or you're giving something to people and they're going away happy, there's a lot of nothingness during the day, of, you know, just traveling and, you know, sitting. I mean, you might notice me moving a lot here now because I've done my back in. And your body is a delicate piece of machinery, and you're putting it through long journeys all the time, planes, trains, buses, you know, vans, all of that. And it can take its toll physically on you. So, yeah, you have to mind all those bits as well. And it can be very, you think to yourself, oh God, is all this travel worth, you know, the pain I feel right now? But you get over that too, and on you go.
Did you ever fall out of love with it?
I did maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And then because I was complacent, I was spoiled, I suppose, thinking that, you know, this is normal, and this is the way it should be, you know, and find yourself, I ask for sparkling water, and this is still water in the dressing room, you know, and you have to catch yourself on, like, gosh, to be doing this, and to be in a new town and meeting new people, and getting a round of applause for doing your work. I mean, we're the lucky ones, you know, like there's people doing really just, you know, people in the hospital and people that, you know, look after people every day, and that's what they do. They don't get a round of applause for it, and you play a few tunes and sing a few songs, and you know, you get a standing ovation. Thanks very much. You know, that's not to be taken for granted, and I don't anymore. I mean, or I try not to, at least. You know, you can slip into your own ways, but on days when you have a pain in your back, but no, it's a very privileged existence, and you know, to play that music that was handed down, I feel very privileged to be part of that huge big river and tributaries, or a tree with roots and branches, you know, and all the connections that you make, and all the people you get touched by, and that, you know, you touch their lives and put a smile on their faces, and you know, people you don't even know, because you're a part of this big, you know, river. You're kind of part of this family that look out for you and look after you and send you messages on your birthday, and send you cards through the post, and you know, they're just there for you somehow. I think it's a great thing. You know, there's so many friends of mine that do great jobs and don't get near as much thanks as we get for doing something we love.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. What was Eurovision like?
It was extraordinary, bonkers, crazy, terrifying, hysterical, unbelievable, all wrapped into one big weekend. I mean, it was terrifying from a singer's point of view because you have to sing live. So when you have to sing live, the first thing, because your voice is your emotional center, and if you're nervous, that's what goes. So, you're there all week, like a walking vocal cord. So everything you say, and so it's absolutely terrifying. You think, I have to do this, walk out on stage to all these people. So, and it was very out of one's comfort zone and all of that. But I mean, the people we met, the experience that we had, the laughs, that we look back on, we laugh hysterically at some of the things that happened. That one day I'll write the book, just on the whole experience. And then, of course, you come home with the tail between your legs. It didn't work out the way you wanted. And you think your world's over. And a week later, heading to Latvia and Lithuania with President Mary McAleese, and on you go like it never happened, And it's huge 1 minute, and then it's just, next, for people in their lives as well, like it was, I remember going down to the shop and everybody knew, good luck, and, all of this, and people sending you cards and flowers and those banners up, and it was a big deal. And I really didn't like that that side of the fame of it, where everybody recognized you. And the best story of it all, though, was I was in a taxi in Dublin, and the taxi driver said, "You're that singer, aren't you? You're that singer, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." "You're that singer. You're doing the Eurovision, aren't you?" "Yeah, yeah." And he says, "You are the second most famous fare I have had in this taxi." "Oh yeah. And who's the first most famous fare?" I mean, that's the question you're going to ask. He said, "Lionel Richie's birthday cake." Woohoo! I've made it.
Oh, that's a Dublin taxi driver if there was ever one.
Yeah. There's all sorts of those kind of stories that just, you wouldn't believe it. But yeah, I mean, I have no regrets, absolutely no regrets doing it. I think we would have regretted it far more if we hadn't done it, been given the opportunity, that do you want to represent your country in front of, 100 million people? And you years later, you'd be saying, how come we didn't do that? Like, and you're not doing any competition beforehand. You're going straight to the Eurovision stage. Okay. But yeah, it was absolutely terrifying before it, and yeah, coming home wasn't nice. But then a week later, and it's like, yeah, off you go.
Yeah. You said something a minute ago about your voice being your emotional center. Just talk to me a little bit more about that. That sounds very interesting.
Well, it's one of your chakras, and when one is emotional, your voice quivers. You tighten up, you restrict. If you're nervous, your voice is the thing that gives you away. If you're emotional, that's what gives you away. If you're in any way kind of upset, that's the first thing to go. So it's very hard. I mean, if you were singing with your hand, for instance, your hand can do the job without getting any emotional, but your voice can't. And that's why some singers, if you hear their voice, they can touch you emotionally, because it's possible. And it's the same with any instrument. You can find that sweet spot, and you can put a cry in it. And when you put a cry in it where your voice is open, and you put a kind of that's when people will, it's like a little puppy dog or a cat meowing. People respond to that on an emotional level as well. So if you have emotion in your voice, now to a degree, there's a point after which it's gone. There's too much, and your voice will break. But really, good singers that and the ones that make fortunes, I listen to them, and they have that. They can do that cry, and that's what people are responding to, and if you get other people to cry, your emotion has connected with their emotion through the voice.
So you're just trying to make people cry.
That's all. Laugh or cry. Oh, you just want an emotional response of some sort. You can make them angry too, I suppose. But in the cry of the pipes, that or the flute, or, you do it on the banjo as well.
That's never made anyone cry on the banjo. Come on.
You did.
I'm going to try now. I'll take it out later on. I need to find this cry.
It's probably more difficult because of the nature of the beast, but it's that whine, is the cry in an instrument. It's the whine, that people, get that feeling. I mean, it has the ability to make people dance, and you know what they say about Irish music, that the three elements, Gultree, Gantry and Soontree, should be present in it, and is present in it. So Gultree, Gantry is so exciting, it makes you want to dance, and you respond to it in a kind of in your body. And Soontree means it's so soothing, it makes you want to sleep. And Gultree, it's so emotional, it makes you want to cry. So all those elements, they're present in all our gigs, from the tunes or the songs. Some gigs might have more Gantry and than Soontree or Gultree, but when all those things are present, I think, for instance, that's why so many people respond all over the world to Irish music, because it brings you on a kind of an emotional roller coaster. It can have you crying, it can have you laughing, it can have you dancing. And this is an ancient music handed down that some people have never heard before, and just respond. Something happens within them, and I think their senses are connecting with those sensory things within the music. That's my theory.
I hadn't heard that before. I love that.
No.
Yeah. And I'm thinking now, when you write a book about staying in a band for 30 years, you should call it Gultree, Gantry, Soontree, and then at the bottom in brackets it should say, and we were too lazy to break up.
Why not? Oh, I do them a disservice by we're too lazy to break up. I mean, there's more than that keeping us together.
I know that.
There's
yeah.
There is a certain.
They're a great bunch of people, because I've had the pleasure of touring with you a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, we were in Japan together.
We were. Yeah.
Yeah, we were. Ourselves and Alison were born in the midnight oil. Well, you were out running and doing. We were thinking.
Definitely wasn't running, eating sushi maybe, but not
sushi,
running.
Yeah, bento boxes, and we were lorrying into pints of sake.
What's the cranky
Yeah.
project? You mentioned it a couple of times.
Oh, so I'm it started in lockdown. I did the songs of Roscommon. I dug out a few songs from Roscommon, and I married them with a cranky box. So a cranky box is a vintage storytelling device. It can be any size, from matchbox size up to, the size of, say, this box here. And the story is on a scroll and is wound like this, and it story passes or unfolds in front of you from one spool to another. And I've seen them in America, and I thought, oh, I'd love to do that with some Irish folk songs. So it kind of started with Roscommon, and I got, thanks to Roscommon County Council and Creative Ireland, I got funding to get 5 songs from Roscommon done, and Peter Cran did the illustrations. And you can see them on Cranky Island Song Project. And then when the lockdown continued, I applied to the Arts Council to roll it out and do a song from every county in Ireland and get a different illustrator from every county to illustrate the song. So in the end, it will be an interactive map of Ireland, and you can scroll through each county, and there's song information, the story of the song, the history of the song, the recording of the song, and the song illustrated, and something that people can add to down the generations if they wanted. They can add to their county stock of songs if they would like, and songs that deal with things like immigration, eviction, the troubles, unrequited love, drinking, comic songs, battle and recruitment, all the different types of songs that we have, and they're all little snapshots from different eras, famine. So it's still going on. I mean, I'm not done yet. I have 10 more songs to record, and then the illustrators, some of the illustrators have the songs. As soon as I get the song recorded, it goes to the illustrator, and I hope to have it all completed maybe September, hopefully. But I was supposed to be at it all this week, but my back told me I couldn't leave the house. So that's one of the. I don't know about you, but lockdown, I hit the ground running with it. I think I got so scared of what's happening. I kept really busy, and so I recorded 5 albums and started up this 32 county project as well on top of that. So then before I knew it, I hadn't a minute, and but getting there slowly but surely. It's better to be busy than not.
That sounds like a fabulous project.
It's lovely because I went down to Waterford to Benny McCarthy's, and I worked with some musicians down there, Donald Clancy and Keevin O'Farrell and Benny, and did song from Waterford and Carlo and where else did we do? Kilkenny, and I did 4 or 5 songs down there, and I did some in Sligo, I did Longford and Louth and Laois and Meath and Westmeath, and I went up to Sean O'Graham and doing Antrim and Armagh, down Derry, and then I was down in Kenny Rafts and Galway and Morton O'Connor, and we did Galway did Galway and Mayo and so forth. So little by little I do them in blocks, and I find the songs first and then arrange them, and then send them on to musicians and then go down and meet musicians and trash them out then in the studios. So it's lovely for me to meet all the different musicians and work all the different musicians, and it's fun, and it feels very worthwhile. And because when you get to a certain age too, you have to think of, what am I going to leave behind? What do you all of this? Oh, what will it all have been for? And you get kind of nostalgic. And I thought to myself, well, if I can do that much, and pay homage to the whole country in that way, through the songs, and leave something that others will add to, then happy days. I can retire.
Lovely.
Not that I'll ever retire.
No.
No.
Kind of maybe last question. Is there a gig or a collaboration or a venue that you'd dream about playing, that you'd love to have a crack at?
Well, I haven't played in Carnegie Hall. I think I'd like the.
You definitely get sparkling water there anyway.
You think? Have you played it?
Oh.
Yeah, I'd like Carnegie Hall. It's just the history of it, and I played it wasn't with Dervish now, and it was on a different project entirely. I'd like to play it with Dervish, but the Ryman, and it's just that feeling you get having walked onto the stage that so many of the people that you admire and respect, and so many of your heroes have played on. That was a lovely feeling, and I am sure that the same would apply in Carnegie Hall. But we're not done yet. We have another songbook in the pipeline, and they're just lovely albums to make as well, because of collaborations, and it's just amazing how many people want to sing Irish songs when you cast your nets. It's so many people really love Irish music and really love certain Irish songs and whatever, and so respect them, and it's the well that keeps on giving, and there's no bottom to it. It's just, there's always something new to discover. You could spend your lifetime excavating, and you still wouldn't have gotten to the bottom of it. And it's just, it's a beautiful thing, and people are discovering it anew all the time. I just saw an interview the other night with Wozier on the Late Late Show. I happened to be watching it, and he's only recently discovered the low whistle, and he just loves the sound of it, and because of that, he's kind of delving into all these tunes and songs, and that's what it does. It kind of it coaxes and cajoles and magnetizes you into it, and it's and you can move away from it for a while, but it always kind of draws you back. There's something in it, and it's like the same stuff that's running in my veins. I find that I can't deny it. It's just in the DNA or something. It's all part of the same thing.
Yeah. Cathy, thank you so much. And I, not to make you sound old, but I remember getting Harmony Hill and listening to that album over and over, and it was central to my musical development as a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. And then to get
listening to me when I was much younger.
Yeah. But Dervish was such a huge part of informing me as a musician. And then to get to meet you and tour a little bit with you, and to find that you're just regular nice people, always means a lot, when you kind of meet your musical heroes and their sound. It's a good thing. Well,
it's a lot coming from you, Enda, and everything you do musically. I mean, I'm a huge admirer of, and I loved with Banjo 3. I love the energy and power and meet you and touring with you. And it is another beautiful thing about Irish music is that you get to play with, your friends and your heroes are the same people. And, with you don't get that in other musics, that you sit down and play some music with, for me, like it should be Peter Horn or Dolores Kane or Maya Brennan or Mary Black or whoever. It's just amazing that you can do that. Everybody is so accessible to each other, and it's full of really nice people that that I think the music is a very leveling thing, and it makes everybody kind of have a sense of gratitude and a sense of belonging that they want to pass on. So,
yeah. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you so much for taking time to chat to me.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed it.
Welcome. I'm going off now to take me painkillers. I'm glad I don't play the banjo. I never would have been able to hold it up.
You'll have to get the chakras unblocked, I think. That's the...
Honest to God, yeah, I know you're talking. All right, Enda.
Hopefully
Thanks
see
a
you
million.
soon. Bye.
Yeah.
Hey, my merry ploughman, follow the gentleman I love best. Commend me to the ploughman. Of all the chessmen I love best, commend me to the ploughman.